Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with this awesome and legendary guest, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. I want to have just I don't know, it could be a fun conversation. I actually have no idea where our conversations are going to go. But today, looking at the stock market, kind of talked about it over the weekend. I've heard about real estate and crypto, and I've been here a couple of times. There have been times in my career where everything turns to gold. Everything's going up. It's never going to stop. The herd, the buy the dip, the this, that, the other thing, everything's just going to go to the moon, Alice. And I just wanted to have a conversation because I think you and I have experienced a couple of those in our career. And if you're not careful, the party usually ends. So I just thought I'd talk about it with you today because, again, it feels like another day where the stocks are just going to go up. They're just going to go up because they're going to go up.
Yeah. So, I've always said, and I say a lot, it's more important to know the top than to know the bottom, right?
Yep.
So you want to be in tune and understand tops. And why is that? Because things move in cycles, right? I say, great times never last, bad times never last. You have your peaks and valleys. Now, real estate, stocks, crypto, everything's been on an upward trajectory since the beginning, right? Of all these assets. Some of them do go away. Some of them go down and never come back. But in general, if you look at the real estate market as a whole, the stock market, cryptos, things like that, certain cryptos, it's been straight up trajectory, but certain things can reach the, point to where there is no more upside. Some things can only go up, they can't continue to go up, forever and ever more. Some things will top out and you'll reach diminishing returns. But the key is you need to understand when that top is, because everybody liquidates sooner or later. And regardless of what everybody's doing, every investment you make at the end of the day is for currency, right? Whatever your currency is, whether it's dollars or whatever that is. And even in cryptocurrencies, there's a huge movement to, replace the dollar, replace fiat currencies and things like that. But right now, everybody's trading for dollars, trading for currency and building that up. And there will be a time when you need to sustain your lifestyle and you need to exit. So you ideally want to sell into strength and exit at the top. That's why it's most important to know the top. You can kind of relatively judge where the bottoms are, because it's going to bounce around and it's going to start moving up, and those types of things. You don't have to get the exact bottom, but as long as you get in before the top and understand where the top is and sell into that strength, then you can kind of sit and wait for the pullbacks and then, get back in. The question is, you need to be able to understand and identify uptrends versus downtrends and where the difference between a pullback and a crash and a correction, because there's pullbacks, which are, 5-10%, depending on the market, and then there's corrections, 10, 15, 20%. Then there's crashes, 50, 60, 70%.
Right.
And then different assets run in different cycles and different macroeconomic, things affect those. We've been on the gravy train in the markets, stocks, commodities, real estate, cryptos, because of the quantitative easing, the bond purchasing, and the low interest rate environment. So as long as those things stay status quo, there's no reason to believe anything's going to come, going to turn and come backwards. The economies are still relatively strong. We've got little hiccups here and there because of supply chains and, constraints and things like that. But for the most part, the world is getting through and past the pandemic. So world's opening back up. Travel's going to, start happening again, things like that. So there's still a lot of good news out there. But I think, it's very frothy right now all across the board. So it's a great time to take some profits and, kind of see what happens, because you're not going to double from here. You might have a little bit of upside, but in the near term, you're not going to see double in general on the averages from here. You might have a few things like in stocks, you get the meme stocks that are pumping, you get IPOs that are pumping and then they pull back, and you get SPACs that pump and pull back. Crypto's the same way, runs in cycles. Generally Bitcoin tops, then Ethereum, then your large cap alts, and then alts and your small cap alts. That's kind of the cycle crypto's running lately. But here this year, it's been kind of weird because a lot of the altcoins have been, topping and shooting up before Bitcoin's really been maxing out. So that game's changing just a little bit in terms of that. And then, typically everything will peak and then it goes into a multi-year bear market. So I don't know if we're going to see that this time. So it's, it's really interesting.
Yeah. A couple of things that I look at, right? I don't know a better analogy than it's a party like 1999 and the booze is flowing, music is playing. But at some point, it's 2 a.m. and most people are gone, but there's always a few kind of, happy party goers still going strong. And then I think about the investors, right? Like Warren Buffett just released earnings for Berkshire Hathaway on Saturday, record cash balances. Believe me, Warren Buffett is on record saying he hates cash. He wants to use cash to buy assets. Why does he have a record cash balance? Because stuff's expensive, right? Nothing he could buy that he's comfortable with. Jamie Dimon, now 6 or 7 months ago, says that JP Morgan had $500 billion in cash and probably more by now. The market is frothy. And if there are these experienced investors have been around the block for decades, and they know that they can miss some of the upside, because you're right, it won't double from here. But they also know that at some point having cash will be valuable and they'll be able to pick up at discounts.
No, I'm saying, well, it'd be very difficult to double from here in the near term. Could it double from here in 10 years?
Oh, yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I meant near term, my mistake. Yeah, I misspoke. But yes, it's, the upside risk versus downside risk is kind of skewed, right?
It's opportunity cost. And, that's what you look at, discounted cash flows, opportunity cost, things like that. And, when things are as frothy as they are right now, and we're getting ready to find out what's the Fed really going to do and how fast? What does interest rate policy around the world look like and how fast? And, central banks around the world are already making moves and making changes. So once we see those things settle in and we see a little bit of this, exuberance and a little bit of profit taking, happen, it's really interesting that this is all coming this time of year. Because typically the end of the year is bullish, right? Typically you get the Santa Claus rally and markets do well going into the end of the year.
For sure.
So it'll be real interesting to see, how this year plays out and, what the climate looks like moving forward. But, you have to be careful. You can still make some moves and get in and get out. And, depending on what market you're in and what you're doing, real estate interest rates are still low. So as long as you're buying cash flow property and that's, cash flowing, and as long as you're, if you're speculating, you're in markets where there's low inventory and things are still moving quickly, you just got to be careful and be nimble and be ready to go. And markets are the same way. You just need to understand, what your upside, set your stop losses on the, on the down to limit your downside and things like that. And just be smart and be careful and, be able to understand the risk, what that risk is going to cost you if it happens, and be able to handle it. And, just don't put more in than you're able and willing to lose.
Yeah. The other thing to think about in these markets that I've been through is you just never know what's that one thing that could pop it, right? That could change momentum. And I just wanted to ask, one of the things that's going to happen in the near future is we might have a change in Fed presidency. Jerome Powell may not be renominated. Don't know where you come off on yes or no, but there's a chance that he doesn't get renominated and the market doesn't like the replacement. Something like that could be a spark, a pen, whatever. Any thoughts on Jerome Powell coming back?
Those types of things are correction tantrums, so I think if you see interest rate policy, things like that, you'll see some correction, when the difference is, between that and a crash. So what's going to, the pandemic caused a big crash, the banking crisis caused a big crash, so when you look at crashes over the history, it's usually a big black swan thing that almost nobody sees coming that, happens quickly and has a huge effect on things. So the question is, what's out there, lying beneath the surface that nobody knows about, nobody's talking about, that could really create the big hiccup globally, because we're a global economy now. And that's what usually happens, now, that Fed chair position is hugely important, just like the, Treasury Secretary. And, we've got some pretty interesting things coming out of her mouth lately.
Yeah, no kidding. Janet Yellen.
But, crazy. The Fed is a different animal and, largely can be controlled and reined in by Congress if they're off track. So, we'll just have to wait and see, what that contemplation looks like, who replaces them and what they're talking about. But right now, the money is still flowing. So as long as the money's flowing, there's no reason to believe that anything's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. I just love this conversation. Greg, do me a favor. How can people follow you, get part of your world?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. That's where all my info is. YouTube podcast. Go check it out.
Thank you, buddy. Take care.